Welcome to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms. There's not just one way to invest in real estate. There's all kinds of ways to invest in real estate and all kinds of places. Today, we're going to talk about a lesser-known niche that may have some compelling reasons for you to consider, and we've got a great guest on the Real Estate Guys radio program. For thousands of years of human history, silver has been recognized as money. Then in 1965, the United States took silver out of the financial system. But did silver stop being money? Smart investors don't think so. And ever since, when there are concerns about the quality of the currency, alert investors seek shelter in silver and gold. As the size and frequency of major financial crises grow, silver is attracting a lot of attention. To help better understand the what, why, and how of silver, watch the free 9-part series, Making Sense of Silver. Everything you always wanted to know about silver but didn't know to ask. Featuring 30-year precious metals veteran Dana Samuelson. Send your email requests to silverseries@realestateguysradio.com. Whether you own silver now or you're wondering if it's too late, email silverseries@realestateguysradio.com. Welcome to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms. With me, as usual, our co-host, financial strategist, Russell Gray.
Hey, Robert.
Today, we're going to talk about a niche, and it's a really specialized and interesting niche. And whether you're interested or not, I think you're going to learn a ton today because we got a great guest, a seasoned real estate investor who's been through highs and lows and lots of different product types. But today, we're going to talk about a way that you as a real estate investor can get exposure to kind of a different real estate marketplace.
You know, we talk all the time how real estate is not an asset class. Even if you're in a single product type like single family homes, every market is different. And then you look at how different types of real estate serve different demographics: residential assisted living, older people, student housing, younger people. You get medical office, and you have retail, you have industrial, obviously leisure, hospitality. The list goes on. And so when you can get off the beaten path and you go find these little niches where there is demand and you can find the right supply-demand dynamic and you catch a wave, something going on in the economy or demographically, you can really find some opportunity. So we're always scouting for those, and we've discovered one that we had some exposure to through a member of our syndication mentoring club, Inner Circle. Been very active in this space, and so it piqued my interest. I'm like, oh gosh, this is really, really interesting. And so now we get a chance to talk about it in greater detail.
And what we're talking about today is RV parks. A recreational vehicle has to park somewhere at night. Now, I figured this out because my youngest son was desperate to go out in an RV and spend a few days. So we had a Boy Scout event. We ended up renting an RV without really knowing much about it. I figured you'd just show up somewhere. Well, come to find out, you got to have a reservation. Most of the places we wanted to stay had been fully booked, and I thought, wow, this is interesting. Meanwhile, our friend had been telling us about this space, and they had started with a single RV park and kind of bootstrapped it up, figured it out on their own, got it up and running, found management, all the things you have to do in any real estate investment. And then it really started to take off, so they decided this is a great space for us, and we're going to do a second one. And they raised the money to do that, and this was their path. And then a funny thing happened. They had an unsolicited offer to buy their entire portfolio. And they looked at that and said, wow, well, we've spent, 7-8 years building this up and we wanted to do more, but the price was really appealing. And they decided to do that. And now we're headed off in another cool niche-y direction that I'm sure we'll talk about sometime this year. But it brings up this niche. And what's really great about RV parks is that there isn't that much competition. Meaning there aren't lots of big operators. There are certainly a few of those, but it's very fractured and fragmented, which I think on the big level gives a pretty good opportunity. But the other part is you don't have a lot going on in these parks. There's few structures. You're not having to maintain the units and so forth. These are folks that stay a weekend to months at a time. And so we're pretty excited about where there may be opportunity for real estate investors in this space.
Yeah, we started watching just what was going on, and you look at something like the number of RV sales, and that has been huge over the last several years, and don't exactly know what's underneath it. Very excited to learn more about the particular space, but obviously if there's more of these vehicles on the road, then you would assume that there's more of a demand for places to park them, and people are buying them for a reason. So I'm super excited to learn more and do a deeper dive on this whole RV park investment niche.
Our guest today is no stranger to the Real Estate Guys radio program. He's been on several times before. When we come back, you'll meet our good friend Paul Moore today on the Real Estate Guys radio program.
Live nationwide, you're listening to the Real Estate Guys. Find out more at realestateguysradio.com.
With everything going on in the world, don't let your lack of financial understanding derail your investments. Real estate investors need to see the bigger economic picture. The Federal Reserve, bonds and interest rates, precious metals, oil and gas, cryptocurrency, and the inner workings of monetary policy, just to start. If you're at all confused about how and why market metrics intersect and what it means to you as a real estate investor, take your understanding to a new level with the Future of Money and Wealth video collection. Discover the opportunity to hedge against inflation, deflation, and stagflation. Gain critical insights on real estate niches that perform well in challenging times, and learn specific strategies to fortify your balance sheet before it's too late. Simply send an email to future@realestateguysradio.com for all the details. The Future of Money and Wealth includes 20 videos of powerful presentations and panel discussions featuring Robert Kiyosaki, Peter Schiff, G. Edward Griffin, Dr. Doug Duncan, Simon Black, CPA Tom Wheelwright, Brian London, Dr. Chris Martinson, and many more. Email future@realestateguysradio.com today.
If you love real estate and have always wanted to own your own business, listen up. The Real Estate Guys and their panel of experts want to teach you how to go full-time fast in the real estate syndication business. These next few years may go down in history as one of the best times ever to acquire investment real estate. There are deals everywhere if you know where to look and how to assemble the resources. The Secrets of Successful Syndication seminar will show you how to make big money doing big deals from a team of experts that have syndicated projects totaling more than $1 billion. Don't wait for someone to give you a raise or create a job for you. Attend the Secrets of Successful Syndication and learn how to build a team, raise capital, find deals, and make full-time money in 6 months or less. Go to realestateguysradio.com and click on events. All the big players use syndication as a way to diversify risk, optimize profits, and earn big money. You can too. Go to realestateguysradio.com and click on events.
Hi, this is Simon Black from sovereignman.com, and you're listening to The Real Estate Guys.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program, heard every weekend on this fine radio station all the time at realestateguysradio.com and your favorite podcast outlets. We're talking today about investing in RV parks. What is that all about? Kind of a unique niche, but a man who knows a bunch about it. Let's say hello. Returning to the Real Estate Guys radio program, Mr. Paul Moore. Hey, Paul.
Hey, guys. It's great to be here.
Good to have you with us. You have quite a storied background in real estate. You've been through self-storage and multifamily, and you've done some rehabs and flips. You've even been on Halloween Horror Stories before. But tell us what got you excited about the RV park investing space.
Well, I wrote a book called The Perfect Investment. I thought it was a humble title back in 2016, but I got really concerned about multifamily. For us, at least for our company, we felt that maybe it was getting a little overheated and we weren't seeing the deals that we used to. And, we didn't have the acquisition pipeline. Admittedly, some of the multifamily, other folks who were doing such a great job in that area. So we decided to expand out into other asset types like mobile home parks and like self-storage and other industrial, et cetera. And we had a desire to look into RV parks for a long time, but we couldn't find an operator. We couldn't find a single operator. Our Wellings Capital funds invest heavily with operators that we do a lot of due diligence on. And it took us years to find one that we really liked because, like you said, there's a couple big players. And then there's a whole lot of mom and pop operators. And we were looking for a pro that wasn't at either one of those extremes. But very excited about this asset type.
And I think one of the challenges as you get into the niches is finding all the pieces that you need. You know, we spoke about our friends, a great couple that started an RV park and really did a great job. They ended up bringing in her sister and her husband to run it. So they had somebody on site that they knew well and trusted. And that has to be a big part of any investment strategy, is who is going to operate this. If you're not going to rent it out yourself, which we strongly discourage most of the time, then who's going to do it? And as you mentioned, multifamily, oh my gosh, there's dozens of awesome third-party multifamily companies that manage these types of assets. But when you think about the smaller the niche gets, the fewer the operators are. But it sounds like maybe you've cracked that code.
Yeah, we did. We finally found an operator who has been around actually since the late 80s in commercial real estate. And they had done really well in self-storage since the early 90s, never lost $1 of investor money. They had a professional team, professional company, and they were able to hire a lady who had grown up in an RV park, and she had been one of the long-term big players in the RV park space for over 20 years. And so they were glad to get her on board, and we were really impressed with their organization. And they felt that RV parks were about where self-storage was in the early to mid 90s. And so whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it sure looks like a similar profile to what was happening in self-storage about 30 years ago in an area we call a little bit undiscovered.
Yeah, which is harder and harder to find, but when you can figure the puzzle out, it can be quite rewarding. You know, I would think, and I don't have any details on this, you've probably studied this more than me, but when the pandemic hit, it seems as though sales of RVs went up. People wanted to get out, but they were a little cautious about being close to a bunch of people, having common walls, touching elevator buttons, all that stuff. And so I remember seeing a resurgence in people not just RVing, but camping and getting outdoors and staying on local vacations instead of long distance. Is that what you saw happen?
It's really incredible what happened. So the 2019 was the record year for RV park investing, or RV park stays, I should say, up to that time. But in 2020, it went up 5x. And I don't mean the total. I mean the number of new RV campers went up by 5-fold over the number in 2019.
Wow.
And in fact, this has already been a long-term growing trend. From 2000 to 2020, there was, I believe it was over 60% increase in RV park camping, but it just went through the roof during COVID. Like you said, people were scared. You know, they didn't go to hotels. Instead of 2.3 million airline travelers per day, it was down to, you know, the 100,000 level, if I'm not mistaken, at one point. There was just this huge desire to get out. People were starting to realize as COVID dragged on, what are my priorities? What do I want out of life? Do I really want to be chained to this corporate job? Maybe I want to do something different. And so RV park camping has just soared. Here's an amazing statistic. There were 11.2 million RV owners as of 2021. 9.6 million more households say they want to buy one within the next 5 or 6 years. Now, production limits that because the record year production of RVs is only about 600 to 650,000, and we're at that capacity already. But later on in the show, if you remind me, I'll tell you something that makes that work really well, even if they didn't produce another RV for a while.
All right. Well, I think there's another maybe unintended ripple because of the pandemic, and that is a lot of folks have figured out they can work from almost anywhere. And I was surprised when we went RV camping how strong the internet signal was at the RV camp. Now, I'm sure it's not like that everywhere, but I would also think that these folks that can work from anywhere, why not go out and see the world while you're doing that?
You know, it's really amazing. There was already a huge increase from 2010 to the beginning of 2020 in remote working. I think it was a 400% increase, but now with COVID, we've got a first in world history. I can confidently say there's never been anything like that. Where McKinsey and companies says that COVID-19 in this last 2.5 years has allowed a huge percentage of people to work full-time from the road or remotely, and then a whole lot who can work 2 or 3 days a week, or maybe up to 50% of their time remotely. And a lot of those folks not only have a desire to be out because they have, white collar jobs, they're chained inside most of the time. And historically, they're the same people that have the money, the flexibility, and, that this new desire I mentioned to actually live their life and not be chained to the office. So, I know a guy who sold actually rented out his home in Roanoke, Virginia. He bought a nice RV. He outfitted it with a beautiful desk that drops down from the ceiling, threw a couple dirt bikes in it, and he hit the road full time. And he's been going to RV parks that have cell signal and, internet, and just been having a great time. And there's a lot more and more people are doing this type of thing, even if it's just for a weekend at a time or a week at a time. This remote working revolution has driven an entire new level of demand in the RV park space.
That is so interesting because you have an infrastructure of these parks, and they've been around forever. There's been, RV parks and trailer parks and all that stuff for a long time. And yet now you have a completely new group of people that are interested in it. And you have folks, because of the natural aging of the baby boomers, are thinking, hey, this would be a great way to see the country or the world while we're out in our golden age and all that. So I think that it's always interesting when there's a new use for an existing asset. But I'll also say that when I went out and went RVing for the weekend, we had a fabulous time. Both my kids loved it. I was really surprised that it really wasn't any less expensive than staying in a nice hotel. I was kind of taken back by some of the space rent.
Yeah.
And, I just assumed, it's not going to be very expensive. And it wasn't super expensive, but maybe more than I thought, which had me thinking, all right, there could be an investment play here. Let's talk about the basics of how it works, what a park is, sizes and shapes and what you have to provide and infrastructure, and give us the nickel tour on that, Paul.
Yeah. So I was, there is a study that came out that said that it is, as of 2015 or so, the last time I saw the version of the study, it was about 41% less expensive than doing a car hotel vacation and 60% less expensive than an airline hotel vacation. But I'm guessing with the supply and demand changing as it has, and some of these parks being booked up already for next year, or at least next summer, I imagine that the cost has gone up, which is, potentially to the benefit of the owners and investors. I was surprised also that motorhomes gas mileage is not as bad as I thought it was. I assumed, my Toyota Sequoia gets 12 to 18 miles the gallon. I've never seen it above 18, actually. 2/3 of the RVs out there do that well or better. And so that was surprising. I don't know, maybe I should drive an RV around instead of that Sequoia. At any rate, yeah, there are 4 types of RV parks that I'm aware of. One I would call an overnight park, and that's typically something on the way somewhere. You're traveling somewhere. It's near the highway. It's light on amenities, and it's heavy on convenience. Just a place to stay along the road.
Get there late and leave early in the morning.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So these people typically stay a day or two at most, or maybe even overnight at one of these parks. They're in and out. The second place was just the opposite. The second type, I should say, are extended stay parks. And these are the kind where you see, especially at lakes or mountain resorts, there are decks built around the camper. And some of the campers are, well, let's say a little odd, like my cousin, who actually took an old school bus in the 70s and turned it into a permanent extended stay RV. Now, I'm not saying we're hicks or anything, but, well, you can take that for what it's worth. A third type that's not real well known is actually workforce housing. When I worked up in the Bakken in the oil play in about a decade ago, there were lots of RV parks that sprung up, people staying in RVs to work in the oil fields. And so a lot of those, people take their RVs with them as they're working on pipelines, construction projects, etc. And then the fourth type, and this is my favorite, is our destination RV parks. Now, one of the downsides to RV park investing is in mobile home parks, you're not going to get a competitor spring up next door for the most part. But in RV parks, that could happen. There are remote locations. The land is typically not that expensive where you're, locating an RV park. A destination park sort of fixes that by creating a lot of barriers to entry. A destination park might be a park like I stayed at one in North Texas, and it had, I think it was $3 or $4 million to acquire this park, but they have a $17 million total build out budget. They were doubling the spaces. They were adding better internet. They were adding food services, a $2.5 million water park, a $600,000 lake with a $200,000 floating obstacle course called Wibbits. By the way, they rent those Wibbits out for $17 an hour per person in the summer. They can go up for up to $1,000 an hour is the total revenue stream on these Wibbits in the summer. So pretty cool value add, but they had lots of stuff like face painting and hay rides and pools and fishing and dog parks, mini golf, gem mining, all kinds of things were, added on to these destination parks. So these are really an alternative to Disney. And in a time like we're facing now, which might be a little bit of a downturn, it's sometimes more popular to go to places like these than to go to a resort like Disney.
I was just at a big hotel owners conference, and they were showing, one of the economists was showing inflation based on segments within society. The thing that had inflated the most, 42% year over year, airline tickets. And I fly a lot, you fly a lot, planes are full, planes are expensive. You don't have to fly if you get in your RV and go to one of these destinations where you can have fishing and hiking and different foods. And that also brings up this ancillary income part.
Right.
Our friends who own these parks said they could make as much from the ancillary offerings as the actual space rent, which I'm guessing is going to be different in one of those overnight near the highway places than it would be in a destination type park.
Yeah, it's interesting. Some of the folks at these parks might complain about their $60 or $70 rent to pay for a tent site or a glamping site, but they will happily drop $75 a day on a fancy looking but kind of cheap golf cart that they rent there.
Right.
And so the golf cart alone, in addition to the Wibbits and the face painting and the hayride and all the other things they're paying for, is more, the golf cart alone is more than some of the site rentals.
We went to a park, and we were more of the travel along and stay for the night. We were out for 3 nights and 4 days and stayed in 3 different places. But the one place that we ended up there just at sunset, they had kind of a little snack bar. So, you're tired, you've been out all day. It's like, I don't have another vehicle. So if we're going to go to a restaurant somewhere, we're unhooking this thing and driving it in. It's like, let's just head to the snack bar. And before we knew it, we probably spent $150 that night because they had video games and they had all kinds of fun stuff. Yeah. And so I do think that that's an interesting angle. But let's get back to a minute to the space rent. So we paid $40, we paid $55, and we paid $65. And again, that's on top of renting the RV because we don't own one. But it does include, your hookups and utilities and those kinds of things. So it's not just, hey, I'm carving out a square piece of dirt and I'm going to rent it out for a lot of money. There is infrastructure and there are costs. Can you speak to that part of the business?
Yeah. So since we're not an operator, I don't have all the details on those costs, but there are, it's definitely, unless you're doing a really stripped down, just bring your tent, or just bring your RV with no water, no sewer, no internet or anything. There are some significant costs in getting these up and running. I have heard anywhere from 10 to 15,000 or more per site. And of course, that's on top of the land cost, whatever that costs. So, but, like you said, there's water provided, there's sewer, there's electricity, of course, there's internet. Hopefully it's in a place with good phone service. So, the parents can come for a couple weeks and work while their kids play nearby. But these destination parks, I mean, $17-20 million to do a park, that's not absolutely enormous. I mean, in the Bakken in North Dakota, we saw RV parks over 1,000 spaces. But I'm talking about a park that only has 200 or 300 spaces, with $20 million budget. That's going to create some barriers to entry, but it's also going to be really cost prohibitive for most people to jump into something like that.
Now, we'll talk about the various ways you can invest before we're done, but I think there's one more part. If you've not been part of this, we'll call it a phenomenon. This surprised me. RV enthusiasts are like a thing. I mean, it's crazy. You walk through the park and people have decorations and things, lights they string up. I mean, people stay for an extended period of time and they really develop this little community. And until you see it, it's hard to understand. It's not like a airport hotel where you check in at night and you check out early in the morning and get on your flight. I mean, there's a community that evolves around this whole thing, which gives it, I think, a stickiness as well.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And some of the folks like me, I'm not one of those folks, but I go to a park like this and I notice the same exact thing. There's just, T-shirts and there's sayings they have, and there is a real community growing around this, and it's all kinds of different age groups. I think the largest group of RV renters right now are millennials, but there's a lot in all these different categories, and it seems to be just continuing to pick up and increase in volume and ferocity, if you will, as well.
Our guest today is Paul Moore from Wellings Capital. We're talking about the niche of RV parks. When we come back, we'll play real estate trivia, give you a chance to win one of Paul's books. You're tuned to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms.
Real estate investment advice right in your mailbox. Sign up for the free Real Estate Guys newsletter at realestateguysradio.com.
As I speak, inflation is robbing you at a rate north of 10%. Last year, the number one zip code that Mid-South homebuyers offered income property to Real Estate Guys listeners in appreciated by 21%. To harness that spread and protect and grow your wealth in the current economic storm, you need the 2 decades of experience in renovation and management that Mid-South homebuyers brings to their investors. Every home Mid-South offers you will have brand new components, a new 30-year roof, and a high-quality renter, all in a price range under $150,000. Their empathetic property managers will use your ROI as their North Star, while the lack of repairs on their totally renovated properties contributes to their almost 4-year average renter stay and 99% occupancy rate. Learn about their lifetime occupancy guarantee and total 1-year maintenance guarantee by emailing midsouth@realestateguysradio.com. That's midsouth@realestateguysradio.com. You'll be glad you did.
Hey, ever wished you could go back in time and do some tax planning? Now you can, just like Marty McFly. Lucky for you, a brand new federal law just made this possible with an EQRP to get tax deductions and reduce your taxable income from last year, so you can use that tax savings to invest in real estate, Bitcoin, gold, even your own business. Whether you're a full-time investor, doctor, government employee, even if you have 5 or 50 employees, the EQRP works and is your secret weapon, and now it's retroactive. Hey, I'm Damian Lupo, and we have your solution. By the way, if you got bad advice and used an IRA for an apartment syndication, you are sitting on a U-bit time bomb. But don't worry, there's a solution, the EQRP. The EQRP company is ready to help you get control of your money, kill U-bit, and help you pay way less taxes. Want to learn more about this strategy? Send an email to eqrp@realestateguysradio.com for my special EQRP report. Paying tax or letting Wall Street suck you dry is dumb. Your first step is freeing your retirement money by sending an email to eqrp@realestateguysradio.com today.
Hi there, this is Danielle DiMartino Booth, author of Fed Up, an insider's take on why the Federal Reserve is bad for America, and you're listening to The Real Estate Guys.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program. Thanks for tuning into the show. If you've ever wanted to do bigger deals using other people's money or come alongside big investors doing awesome stuff, then come on out to the Secrets of Successful Syndication, our 2-day workshop on raising capital and doing bigger deals. It happens in early October in Dallas, Texas. You can get all the details at realestateguysradio.com. Under events, look for the secrets of successful syndication. We're talking today with Paul Moore about RV park investing, kind of an interesting niche. Before we get back to that interview, it's time to play Real Estate Trivia, your chance to win a prize by knowing today's Real Estate Trivia question. Just a minute, I'll give you the question, and you'll come up with the answer as soon as you think you have it right. Send an email to trivia@realestateguysradio.com, trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Give us your name, the answer to the question, and your physical mailing address. The first person that gets the correct answer gets an awesome book written by our guest Paul Moore about the self-storage industry. It's called Storing Up Profits, Capitalize on America's Obsession with Stuff by Investing in Self-Storage. Paul will sign a copy of the book to you if you know today's real estate trivia question. Last week on the program, we had David Stockman with us, and we asked this: what is the most common type of job in the U.S.? Well, by far, most of the American workforce, in fact, 13 out of 100, are employed in office and administrative work. Obviously, that includes a huge variety of jobs: receptionists, payroll clerks, secretaries, proofreaders, administrative assistants, and customer service representatives, to name a few. The second largest group of employed in the U.S. work in the health industry. Here's our real estate trivia question for this week. We're talking about RV parks. Where is the largest RV park in the United States? Yeah, obviously, of all the RV parks, there's big ones, medium-sized, large. Where is the behemoth, the biggest RV park in the U.S.? Send your best guess, or maybe you know about it, to trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Give us your name, the answer to the question, and your physical mailing address. First person that gets it right gets Storing Up Profits by Paul Moore. That's today's real estate trivia question. We're here with the author of that book, Storing Up Profits, Capitalize on America's Obsession with Stuff. Paul Moore. Hey, Paul. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
You bet. It's been great.
You know, it's fun to watch the various different niches that you guys approach and just how much study and research and so forth. I mean, it's astounding just how diligent you guys are. Let's transition and talk about what are the opportunities. How does someone invest? This seems like, $12 to $17 million. That's kind of a big investment. I'm guessing that folks could start from the ground up, find a piece of land, do the research, hire a team. People could probably buy an existing park, or people could invest in a syndicated deal. Talk about the different ways that people invest in RV parks today.
Yeah, so my son does land flips, and he's got a lot of land around southwestern Virginia. And I said, you could clear some of that land. A lot of it has timber on it, and you could set up an RV park. But he doesn't run RV parks. I mean, he does land and timber, and it would be a huge hassle. He'd have to learn it. He'd have to manage it. He'd have to figure out how to market it. I don't think it's a great idea for most people, especially as a part-time gig, to own and operate really anything, is my opinion, but I'm pretty opinionated on that because I didn't do well with it.
I think I'm with you.
But another opportunity is to actually buy and rent an RV. We can get into that later. But most people, I think, would rather invest passively. And to do that, you can invest in a REIT. There's a couple out there. There's Sam Zell's Equity Lifestyles. There's Sun Communities. They both have REITs. I looked at their returns, though, and, I was a little concerned that they went right up and down together, though their underlying businesses certainly didn't go down, by 23% year to date. They, both dropped in a similar way on similar days. And that reminded me, that they're part of Wall Street's casinos. They're going up and down based on the mood on Wall Street, based on a CEO scandal, a random tweet, or a war in Europe. And that's honestly not the way I like to invest. So another option is to invest in a single asset syndication. And that's a great way to invest. A lot of people like that. I found that for me, I like the idea of investing in a portfolio or a diversified fund that allows me to invest in, multiple geographies, multiple operators in some cases, multiple asset types in other cases. And so we like investing in an RV portfolio or fund, but I think all those are certainly valid ways to get involved in this space.
Well, investors that are more passive want diversity in their portfolio. And if you're in one investment in one place in the world, then you are very beholden to that geography and demand and changes and all the things. Doesn't matter what the asset type is. So I'm a big fan as well of diversifying that way. But I would think that would be even more important when you're talking about this kind of space because, imagine you were in a fund that had 5 different destinations. I'm going to guess that one of those is going to be the rock star destination, and you might not know that ahead of time. And one, well, maybe not, right? So it is a way to kind of approach diversification. Right. But I want to start on the other side because this is a fascinating idea that you brought up, which is I don't have to invest in the park. I could invest in an RV because what's happening now is pretty exciting. You alluded to this earlier, but tell us about this idea that you're seeing that people are actually sharing recreational vehicles.
Yeah, well, we all know what happened in the Airbnb revolution about 15 years ago or so. A guy rented his couch in New York City, and he came up with the idea of Airbnb. And of course, this shocked me. Marriott Corporation has been around almost 100 years. And they have a total of about, in a round number, as the largest hotel chain. Actually, they have about 1.5 million units worldwide. Airbnb has only been around they're basically just past a startup, and they have about 5 or 6 times as many rooms or units as Marriott. So Airbnb has certainly shaken up the industry. Uber. I mean, we use Uber as a verb now, like we use Google, right? I'm going to go Uber my way over to the conference.
Yep.
And all kinds of things are being shared right now. I mean, you can share tools, you can share lawn equipment, there are people sharing clothes. Now, that kind of made me feel a little weird. I don't know about you. Just not something I think I would do. But if you want to go to Tuileries, you can learn how to share your clothes with others. I don't get it. But RVs are in the same boat. There's organizations like Outdoorsy and RV Share that actually allow you to turn your RV into a rolling profit center. You can actually, a lady we know, I think you know her, Whitney Hutton, she actually told me that she actually rented out an RV. She paid $82,000 or so for the RV. She got $40,000 in net profits in the first 6 months of this past year. It's just really, really impressive what you can do. There's Class A, there's B, there's C, there's trailers, motorhomes, all kinds of RVs can be rented out. So, the Outdoorsy folks tell us that an average RV sits idle 50 weeks a year. It's only used 2 weeks a year. Imagine if you could put that same RV on the road 5 or 10 more weeks a year, or even 50 more weeks a year. Think about this. You can make a lot of profit as an individual, but let's go back to our topic here. Imagine the pressure on RV parks when some significant percentage of RVs are now on the road 3 to 5 to 10 times as much as usual. RV park demand is skyrocketing as a result. One thing I like about this too is I think I mentioned on one of your earlier shows that I tried to build 7 or 8 houses over the years, and it was a bad idea for a guy who doesn't know how to tighten my own doorknob to build a house. I'm just saying. Well, I don't like the idea of getting an RV that I'm unfamiliar with, driving it down the road, wondering about what happens if it breaks down in the middle of the night, wondering how to, hook up the water and sewer and everything on site. They've solved that too. If you want to, they will actually deliver your RV to the site. You just show up with your family and voila, it's all set up. They've taken care of the insurance. They take care of maintenance. If you do decide to drive it, all that's included and covered. There's roadside assistance. They've figured all of it out, and it's really a boom to this whole segment.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Now you get the same asset that's normally sitting in somebody's garage 50 weeks a year, and you get it back into productive use, which is great for the owner, but also the demand on the parks. And I think speaks to your earlier point about if only 600 to 650,000 of these can be built a year, and that's just kind of where the industry is based on existing infrastructure, supply chain, all that stuff, and yet there's this bigger demand. This is a way to solve that. And it does create more demand, which isn't just for the overnight space rental, if you will, but for all the other ancillary businesses we talked about. Pretty exciting stuff. Now, of course, any investment, as you know very well, Paul, has its downsides. Let's talk about some of the challenges here, some of the potential things that could go wrong in RV park investing.
Yeah, I'll go over several of these. So first of all, like I mentioned, I told you my son has, a lot of land around Southwest Virginia. Well, if he can just set up an RV park, even if it's a lower end one, I mean, he's going to compete, and that's going to put some pressure on the existing RV parks. So I think the barriers to entry for your basic low end RV park are quite low. And so, of course, if you can't create a moat around your company, like Mr. Buffett tells us, that is a potential disadvantage.
Yeah.
Another disadvantage is in the workforce housing RV park space. When I was in the Bakken, I told you people were building 1,000+ unit space RV parks right down the road from us. When oil prices went from $100 back to about $30 a barrel, those guys were hurting. And so there was actually an indoor RV park in North Dakota, to handle those 40-degree below zero winters. And that was actually shut down from what I heard. That's a disadvantage. Another disadvantage is in the destination RV parks. That's the one I like best. Think about this. If you've got a $17 million asset with all those amenities, the food service, all the fun toys and stuff, just like Disney, you need a lot of people to staff that. And we all know right now, staffing, employment is tough. That's frankly a disadvantage to the destination park model that we are investing in. Supply chain has been another issue. Hopefully that's temporary, but you can see in America right now, it's been really hard to get stuff. It's been hard to get equipment. It's hard to get construction done. Projects are running behind. Just like you said, there's nothing that's perfect. There's nothing without challenges. And that reminds me of the importance of partnering with or investing in a company that really knows what they're doing.
Well, and it's any space like that. You invest in a single family house because you think, well, I grew up in a single family house and I buy one. And before long, if you're managing it yourself, you're like, you know what? Life is too short to manage property. I'm going to find someone that can professionally do this. And let's face it, on a single family house, there's not that many moving parts. You might have a tenant that stays for a year or 2 or 3, and you've got a professional manager that can help vet tenants, take care of their problems, etc. Anything in hospitality, which I would consider RV park investing, because you've got folks who are checking in every 3 days, every 5 days, every night sometimes. It is a business as much as it is an investment. And so I think from the passive point, you're investing in the whole picture. So certainly you do have to do a little research to help you in that regard, as Paul often does. He's written an awesome report that kind of highlights some of the highs and lows when it comes to this space. Paul, tell us about the report.
Yeah, I viewed this as an outsider, somebody who was coming in to think about, if I want to invest in this business, where would I start? What would I look for? How could I find opportunities? So I cover REITs. I cover briefly, investing in your own RV and putting it on the rental program, how to actually rent an RV. But most of the report is just going over the backdrop for why this is a growing industry, what some of the pros, what some of the cons are, what are the different methods. A lot of stuff we just covered in the last 45 minutes are in this special report, and you can see all the sources and everything for where we got the detailed information that we have.
Well, you've done several of these reports for us in different spaces, and we appreciate it because folks are listening, while they're on the road or they're exercising, and they're like, well, okay, I'm not going to remember all this. If you would like to get the details, all you're going to do is send an email to rv@realestateguysradio.com, RV at realestateguysradio.com. You'll get Paul's new report. Plus, you'll get his contact details because at Wellings Capital, you guys do a whole bunch more stuff. I appreciate you staying center topic today, but you do have experience in multifamily, self-storage, a lot of these different asset classes. Just give us the nickel tour on Wellings Capital and what you guys do, Paul.
Yeah, we found, as a single family investor myself and somebody who tried to do all types of hands-on stuff, I found that I was unable to be an expert in all these different areas and all these different things, especially when I was focused on something else, whether it was enjoying my family, retirement, or, in my case, running a business. And so we found that hands-off was the way to go, and we found diversification was important. Our company, our desire is to do deep due diligence on the very best operators that we can find in these different recession-resistant asset types like mobile home parks, self-storage, etc. We put those together in a fund which give investors diversification across different asset types, geographies, operators, strategies, and projects. Nothing's foolproof. And like we said earlier, there's downsides to everything, but we've done everything we can to mitigate those on behalf of investors. So investors can invest once with us and get a piece of all those different asset types, geographies, and operators.
Love that. And I've always been impressed with how both sides of the coin you are. You look at the up, you look at the down, you make a strategic decision about risk-adjusted reward. And that's just a good mentality for real estate investors to keep in mind anyway. If you'd like the report on what it takes to invest in either an RV or an RV park, just send an email to rv@realestateguysradio.com. Paul, thanks for being on the program.
Thank you.
You're tuned to the Real Estate Guys radio program. More when we come back. I'm your host, Robert Helms.
Need help with your real estate investment portfolio? Check out the resources page at realestateguysradio.com.
Real Estate Guys listeners, are you tired of losing real estate deals due to financing issues? Have you had enough of waiting on banks, lenders, and investor groups to fund new projects? What if there were a way to eliminate all the hassle and invest in real estate on your own terms? I'm here to tell you there is. Patrick Donahoe here from Paradigm Life. I'm an Investopedia Top 100 Most Influential Financial Advisor, and I recently wrote a best-selling book about the financial strategy that changed my entire investment model, and the one that could change yours. To get a copy of my book for free and learn how you can maximize your real estate portfolio by acting as your own bank, send an email to mybank@realestateguysradio.com. Don't make another real estate deal without reading my book first. Email mybank@realestateguysradio.com now to get your copy for free.
Having trouble finding deals where the numbers make sense? Invest in an asset class that delivers cash flow to you in good times and bad, and where most of that cash flow is tax-free. I'm Dave Zook. Many of you have heard me speak at Real Estate Guys events or heard me on their podcast. My team is a top 5 ATM operator in the country, and right now accredited investors can make cash flow returns well into the double digits and get huge tax deductions. For your free report on this lucrative asset class, email atm@realestateguysradio.com.
Hi, this is Garrett Sutton, Rich Dad's advisor. Remember, equity happens, and you're listening to The Real Estate Guys.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program. Hey, if you ever wanted to do bigger deals using other people's money, or if you'd like to passively invest with some awesome folks, come on out to the Secrets of Successful Syndication. Happens in March in Dallas, Texas. You can get all the details by sending an email to syndication@realestateguysradio.com. Talking today about investing in a really unique and fun niche, and that's RV parks. Tell you what, I'm always impressed with the research that Paul does in any investment that they take on.
Yeah, I think that's what you got to have. Obviously, in our syndication program, we talk about that all the time. The most important responsibility anybody has that's putting together investor funds to go do something is doing their homework, making sure that they vetted what they're doing, that they understand the macro environment that the investment fits into, develops an investment thesis that tends to leverage either the opportunities or mitigate the risks that are inherent in that macro picture. And obviously, we talked about demographics and some of the changes in the remote working in this particular space. And you can make an argument for all those things that this is a really a growing niche. And while you guys were doing the interview, I was busy on the internet looking up stats and finding some really relevant information about it. But that's what you look for from someone who's going to be managing the money. So whether you're listening to this and think, hey, this is great, I'd like to do this, you can do this passively. You can invest passively, as Paul said, through a REIT or through a single asset, which is where you know what the deal is and you can vet the deal, or you turn it over to a manager who you believe in has skills and the deal flow, and then they put together a portfolio that you're invested in. So there's pros and cons in doing all those things, but that's a way to do it passively. You can be active if you got enough money to do it in your own account and you feel like, hey, I want to run this myself. God bless you. Maybe somebody's dream life is to live in an RV park and take care of their customers. Probably not my dream life, but I think for a lot of people who would want to be active, learning how to raise the money to do that's why we teach syndication. So whether on the passive, the active side, syndicating gives you the ability to go at scale. And I think that's really, really important because this isn't like buying a little single family house. There's a lot to do. But, I was doing the math on some of the stuff he was talking about, and I thought, gosh, if you only had this thing rented out like half the time, and even at $15,000 CapEx, I don't know what the land costs, but an RV space isn't a lot of space, right? It's not like a huge plot of land. The park itself might be pretty big, but these are remote areas. The land's pretty cheap. You do the math on the ROI on that, and it's pretty good. I mean, it's pretty strong. I can see why people are interested in this space. Obviously, I'm anxious to read Paul's report because I know he's an A student and he does a good job, so I'm sure I'll learn a lot. But it's very, very intriguing to me.
Yeah, it's such an interesting space for so many reasons. And again, back to hospitality. Of all the places you can invest, hospitality has among the highest ROI. If, and it's a big if, you have the right management and operations in place. On the Belize field trip we just got back, and maybe the single most important thing people learn there, and this doesn't mean you shouldn't come to the trip because you learn a lot more, but it's this. If you decide I'm going to rent, say, Airbnb, I'm going to, short-term vacation rental. Yeah, there's a lot of them, but they're less occupied by a lot than hotels are because the people that run them aren't that professional. So here's the important lesson. In hospitality, who specifically is responsible for putting heads in your beds? Because it's probably not you. If I own stock in Hilton or Marriott, somebody professional is responsible for keeping those assets full. And it's the same thing here. It's not if you build it, they will come. I find a great piece of land out in the middle of nowhere and decide I want to create a destination. Awesome. Spend your $17 million, make it beautiful. Now, who's coming? Right? You got to figure out all of that. So it's why I'm a big fan of investing alongside folks that have it figured out. Right? I don't want to be the pioneer in this space. And there's all kinds of different spaces. The 3 nights we went, one day we were in this park that just was like a parking lot. Like they were so close to each other, you could hear the guy next door snoring, right? And then one of the other parks that we stayed at, each campground had its own unique flair and style, and people would actually book specific ones based on the kind of experience they wanted to have. So there's all kinds of ways to invest. If you're interested in learning more, you can get Paul Moore's report by sending an email to rv@realestateguysradio.com. That may be the shortest address we've ever given out on the air, rv@realestateguysradio.com. Hey, big thanks to Paul for sharing his wisdom with us today. Make sure you're subscribing to the Real Estate Guys. And until next week, go out and make some equity happen.
This episode of the Real Estate Guys radio show is brought to you by Paradigm Life. Powerful cash management strategies using life insurance. Learn more at beyourbank.com. Mid-South Home Buyers. Low-cost, turnkey cash flow properties in Memphis, Tennessee. Corporate Direct. Asset protection strategies for real estate investors from attorney and rich dad advisor Garrett Sutton. Find these and other great companies under the Resources tab at realestateguysradio.com. To learn how you can expose your product or service to the Real Estate Guys audience, call 888-489-7723 extension 4. That's 888-489-7723 extension 4. Or use the feedback page at realestateguysradio.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week right here on the Real Estate Guys Radio Show.